Well, hello again, guys, from what is a glorious Whitley Park. In fact, it's been pretty glorious in these parts for the best part of 2.5 weeks now, hasn't it? Post-Carabao Cup final. That feeling of joy, that euphoria, it still does linger. You know the players train behind the trees there. Well, you've just missed, before I hit record, the main line, the East Coast train line there. It runs right past the training pitches. The driver must have been a Newcastle fan. He's just tooted his horn repeatedly there. Yeah, I don't know at what point that will get quite annoying for Eddie Howe, but nonetheless, that feeling of celebration, it still does linger here, and how can it not? That first domestic trophy in 70 years, and the scenes we saw on Saturday, that's the only place to start really. And I know some from outside might look in and laugh and try to mock even to a degree. It's only a Carabao Cup, but it was just incredible. It showed the power of the football club. It showed the power of the people. It showed the city at its very best. I was a little bit sceptical, concerned going into Saturday on a number of levels. You know, the short amount of time that had been organised, and I had my wife and my 3 young children going. Was it going to be safe? Was the area big enough? Well, all of that, it almost policed itself. Everyone was in such a good, happy mood. I thought it would be good. It was better than good. It was brilliant. It was better than brilliant. It was real, once in a lifetime stuff. And you know, there's 300,000 eyewitness accounts now, which will preserve that day in history. And boy, was it a day worth preserving. My own paper, the Mail on Sunday, did it fantastically. A wraparound party time on the front page of the Mail on Sunday. We've never seen that before up here. Quite incredible. 11 pages of coverage, and to be there right at the heart of it is we all were. As I said, everyone's got their own different story. It was just a really magical day, and I touched on there my wife taking my young children down, and they loved it and they enjoyed it as well. And I haven't spoken to anyone who didn't have that experience. You know, tell me your story below the line. For me, it started at St James's. I thought, you know, you've got to be there. That was a historic moment. I wanted to be right on the corner of Strawberry Place and Barrack Road to see the bus as it went past, and have St James's Park in the background, in that sight, you know, amidst the flares and everything. And for once, Ant and Dec were on there. Ant and Dec were the B-listers, the real stars. That was Eddie Howe and his players really. And then to get to the Moor and for Bruno to steal the show as he did. Now, I know questions have been asked over Bruno Guimaraes as captain at the start of the season when Eddie Howe made that big decision. Well, his 2 best performances of the season have been actually in the final at Wembley and then during the post-parade party. I just thought he was an absolute atomic bomb of charisma dropped on those celebrations. Bruno was brilliant, as they all were. And again, you know, you talk about your own story. I apologise there for the noise over my shoulder, but yeah, it was better than what appeared over my shoulder on Wembley Way. Of course, I can deal with tractors, that's okay, and this links into this story. So again, I was outside St James's. I had to get along to the Moor to get in our position in the press area to speak to Eddie and the players and to witness the celebration there. And I said to a policeman, what's my best way? How do you recommend I navigate these streets? He said, well, actually, you're probably best off running on the road. And so I did. I was like Forrest Gump, because the bus was expected to only take half an hour, and because it ended up taking more than an hour to make the journey, the road was clear. So I ran down the middle of the road between St James's Park. I dare say, you know, quite a few of you did see me. A few of you shouted out once over. It would have been, who are we signing? Who are we selling? Is he staying? Is he going? Any injury news? There's only one thing folk wanted to say this time, and that was, yeah, have you got any gear? Which I didn't mind. It's funny. It really is funny. Yeah, I hope it wears off in time, but for now, let's enjoy it. I've heard a little whisper, a rumour that a little flag might have been made up of that moment for the Leicester away game, which is no, it's all good fun. You can write 1,000 words. I went to Sweden the week before the final, wrote 2,000 words on it. I wrote 1,000 words from the final about how great Eddie Howe was. You can do all of that, but what you might be remembered for is some fella popping up on your shoulder on Wembley Way. If you haven't seen it, I don't know how. Go back and watch my video reflections post-cup final. So yeah, just to wrap up on Saturday, powerful, iconic, historic, everything about it. To see that image, the one image I loved was that one of Percy Street, where you can see the folk in the multi-storey car park. By this point, fans have started following the bus behind. You wouldn't know if they're stood on pavement, if the streets are paved with gold, if it's sand, if it's water beneath their feet. You wouldn't know, you couldn't see any of it. And that part of town, Percy Street, leading into Haymarket bus station, it's a part of the city we use ordinarily every day, and you wouldn't give it a second's thought really to see it like that, to see the bus passing through it with the cup visible. I just thought that, wow, it was just such a striking, wonderful image, and that was my favourite picture of the entire day, amongst many. You know, there wasn't a bad picture, there wasn't a bad video, and right now I'll just use this little break to drop in some of the footage. I dare say you enjoyed it on Saturday. Enjoy this couple of minutes all over again now.
Okay. La, 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 la. Sandro Tonali, eat spaghetti, love you morrete, he hates fucking Sandro Tonali, eat spaghetti, love you morrete, he hates fucking
Give us your best story to this crowd today.
Aye. I ain't walking.
That'll do me.
Now you see there that video as the bus rolled past St James. Well, that was my vantage during the early part of the parade. And I was talking to a group of lads there, and first of all I've got to apologise for saying no to the offer of a can of Moretti. Yeah, super professional. I did make up for it afterwards, but no, thank you very much for the offer. And we talked in the half hour waiting for the bus to come down Barrack Road, and the one question one lad in particular kept on coming back to was, what does this mean for Isak, for Gordon, for Gamara's? What does it mean for the summer, for the budget, the Carabao Cup? Well, and I was honest then, and I'll be honest now, the Carabao Cup doesn't mean as much as you might think, and that is almost the point Eddie Howe made today with us, that it's back now to 10 huge games, 10 cup finals, if you like, to borrow that old journalistic cliche. They've got to make the Champions League. Only then will everyone be able to answer those questions over how the future looks in terms of that ability to bring in new players, that calibre of player they can attract, and that ability, most importantly for you guys right now, to retain those star names, to retain the likes of Alexander Isak, because without the Champions League there is a danger, and I'm just going to walk away, I think something to do with deliberately, but anyway, walk away from the buzzer. Yeah, because without the Champions League, is a Carabao Cup final victory enough to keep those players? Well, I would say there's a danger there isn't. And then on the flip side of that, it might just be that the Carabao Cup acts as punctuation in many ways. That Bruno said it himself, that legendary status, that legacy, that's secured now. They've won the trophy. So if they don't get that top 5 finish, might it just be that some of those top names, and I know this isn't what you want to hear, and I'm sorry to bring this subject up now on the back of everything I've just opened the video with, but it's the reality. And I always say, my insistence is I will always tell you as it is, how it is, not what you want to hear. And without the Champions League, it probably would leave a major question mark over the likes of Alexander Isak. But undoubtedly has the scenes on Saturday and everything to to do with that? Has that sent a message to those already in the dressing room and to potential targets beyond? Well, absolutely. It was just incredible. I come back to that word again. It was so powerful on so many levels. And it also, as well, for me, it was just that reminder that Eddie Howe is the most powerful man at this club, and he should be the most powerful man at this club. There was the little bit of turbulence off the field last summer and changes in key positions, and all wasn't well. Well, Saturday, that flag, that war flag's image of Eddie draped over the front of the Sandman was just magnificent. And Eddie Howe's delivered this because, yes, there's been the arrival of Saudi ownership and there's been money spent, but that cup final with some of the players who played, you know, Jacob Murphy, others, there was, I think it was 6 or 7 on the day who were involved, who were here at the club pre-takeover in terms of spent minutes on the pitch during the final against Liverpool. Well, that just reinforces the work and the brilliance of Eddie. And I'm not going to go on about this for too long, because I did this in my post-match video, of course I did, but I just think it's important to revisit on the back of the parade. So all of this together, to come back to what I'm talking about, the players, well, Isak, Mahrez, Gordon, others, whoever you want to put in that bracket, Tonali, they know now, they're new anyway. They're working under a fantastic manager who will improve you as a player, who can deliver days like the cup final, who then in turn it leads to the wonderful celebration. Maybe that just might have whetted their appetite for more of those days at this football club under Eddie Howe. But until we know how the season plays out, we can't really answer those questions that the guys pre-parade were asking. Now, where does all of this leave Newcastle going into Brentford tomorrow? Again, another question. What do you think the Carabao Cup win would have done for the rest of the season? We don't know. I'll give you a much better answer after the game tomorrow. And like a lot of Newcastle games, you know this season, you know within 10 or 15 minutes what team is going to turn up. We knew in the cup final, and I would honestly argue that other than the 2 semi-finals against Arsenal, is the one of the only 90-minute performances Newcastle have produced this season. We've seen them play brilliantly for 20 minutes, half an hour, an hour even at a stretch, but there's always been periods in the game when they've gone up, they've gone down, they've come off it. At Wembley, it was from 1 to 90 to 97. Magnificent, full throttle, and they had to be to win it in the end. Can they then go and do that during the remaining 10 matches? Well, no, they probably can't. There was a uniqueness and an occasion to Wembley that demanded that and brought out extra in the players. But can they nonetheless find a way to win matches, to get that consistency back? It's 10 incredible games now. You might think the last one, the cup final, shaped the destiny and the future of players in the club. In a way, yes, of course it does. But these next 10 are just as important. And I think we'll know within 10, 15 minutes, certainly the first half against Brentford. I think it'll be really informative as to how the season plays out. Now, what I think is in their favour, it's a Wednesday night game under the lights, only 4 days after that brilliant celebration. All of those folk coming back together. If this had been an away match or a Saturday, 12:30 at home, I don't think it would have had the same buzz. But back under the floodlights with Saturday fresh in the memory, I think we'll take the feel-good of that into Brentford, and it's a huge one that they've got to win, just to lay that foundation, just to draw the line under the cup final with a positive to take them into what will then be the 9 games after that. To that end, what's it? This guy's following me. To that end, what team is Eddie Howe going to name? I think the only thing he's got to do is he's got to be unchanged from the cup final. Let those 11 who started the game and did so magnificently, let them then take that into Brentford. Now, what else did Eddie Howe say inside? Anthony Gordon, I reported this a couple of weeks ago. He's okay. Of course, he came home from England duty. He's got heavy bruising. He's suspended tomorrow night. Don't forget, he'll be fine for Leicester. Sven Botman, well, he is slightly ahead of schedule, maybe, but we're still looking at a May return for Botman. He's had that minor knee operation. But is there a chance he plays this season? Yes, not guaranteed. We'll know more in terms of how that rehab goes over the next 2 or 3 weeks. He's certainly going to miss all of April, though. What else was there this morning? Well, Eddie was in good mood, good spirits, as you can imagine, but he was very honest in terms of the question. He really is following me. Let's walk back this way. He really was so honest in terms of the question about consistency. He said it is the one big question mark that remains over his team. The last 10 in the league, they've won 6, lost 4. That has been the issue that has plagued them this season, how that team can play as well as they did against Liverpool, but then against Brentford, the same opposition in December, against Man City, that game against Man City 4 or 5 weeks ago left me with a really, really flat feel after that. I thought it was just a really subservient performance and a really disappointing one. You know, perhaps there was that distraction of the Carabao Cup final at the time. We don't know, but they've got to snap from that. Games like Brentford, Manchester City, there's been others as well. You know, they cannot afford a repeat of that at any point between now and the end of the season. And you just hope that feel good, that bringing everyone together, you know, the real camaraderie, Newcastle United again. Kevin Keegan said one day, you'll have your football club back, and I think certainly events of the past 2.5 weeks have felt like that you know, that reunification, Newcastle United, as I said, just incredible, you know, to bookend the video, to come back to where I started. Just a brilliant couple of weeks, a real pleasure to be part of it as a reporter, and you know, thank you so much during that time for all of the interaction, be it below the line here, be it in person. Even my pal on Wembley Way has made a contribution as well. So yeah, guys, prediction wise for tomorrow, I think they take this momentum in with them, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 home victory to Newcastle, and that would just set them up perfectly for the remainder of the season. You can hear the team training there behind the trees. And just as I finish the video, my pal with the cutter, he decides it's time to finish, and that is where I'm going to finish this one. Again, comments below the line, hit like, comment, subscribe, everything else, and I'll see you again from the stands of St James's tomorrow night. Okay, take care, guys. Bye bye.